All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to this financial literacy call. I can see we got 90 people on so far. I know sometimes others come in late. There's always stragglers, and that's fine. But for today, we have a very, very special guest. I knew that I've been having a lot of questions over the last few weeks about cryptocurrencies. And like, aside from doing my research here and there and investing on like a couple that I had tips on or that I'd done some specific research on, I found that I didn't necessarily know 100% the best way to answer all these questions. So I thought, okay, well, let's just get a call with someone who better understands the crypto market. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Zachary, and you guys can find him at Trading Coach on Instagram. Pretty sure everyone knows Zach already. So feel free. I have questions already that I had planned to ask that we're going to go through. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and Zach will be able to answer everything today. So without further ado, I can see we're up to 27 people now. So everyone just drop where you're from, just so we can start getting some interaction, kick this call off. Where is everybody tuning in from? We got Montreal, California, Ottawa, Toronto. Okay. I know we've seen some other, got Montreal, Belgium, Texas, another Texas, Belgium again, Pickering, all right, Winnipeg, Arkansas, more Montreal. Okay, we got lots of Trade House Montreal in here. Toronto, decent. All right, so without further ado, I guess we can just hop right into this. Like, got a couple questions. I don't know how long it's going to take, so wanted to have some extra time. Hang on a second.
All right, there we go.
I didn't realize that you'd give me complete host. You weren't even co-host anymore. I was like,
It's all good. I'm happy to be here. Grateful for everybody that's tuning in with us as well, whether you're live or on the recording. I was in the muted jail for a minute there, but we're good to go. And thank you as well for inviting me on here. I'm definitely excited to talk about crypto. It's one of my favorite things, even though I don't necessarily teach on it so much anymore. I've had the pleasure of working pretty closely with IAM on quite a few projects related to the crypto scene. So definitely have been following the markets. I've been trading them, investing in them, and excited to see what questions you have for me, to see what questions some of the viewers have for us, and to just have a good conversation about the emerging digital currency market.
all right, perfect. So for those of you that don't know, this is going to go up on YouTube afterwards as well. So I do have some more basic questions that some of you on the call might have already known, but just so that everyone has a chance to learn something, whether they're part of this and we already know, or later on, other people who are watching it, if you want to send it out to any friends, family who is looking to learn about crypto, then you have the opportunity to do so later on. So we're going to kick this off super easy. Zach, what is cryptocurrency?
So in a nutshell, cryptocurrency is a digital version of a currency, something that you can do transactions with, you can exchange value, you can purchase goods and services. And I always kind of looked at the US dollar and the Canadian dollar and all of the fiat currency that we have as digital currencies anyways, since they can be relatively created on demand, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, in a nutshell, a cryptocurrency is literally, it's a digital currency. It's something that you can easily transact with anybody, anywhere, all around the world, generally for a much smaller fee than traditional means of sending money.
All right. And cryptocurrencies, they use, or a lot of them, or like basically all of them that I've done my research on at least, is they are decentralized. So what is the purpose of decentralization?
So decentralization is really, really cool because it gives the power to the people. If you think about it, in a lot of the things that we interact with in society, you have a centralized location, whether it be a bank, whether it be government, whether it be a board of directors that are essentially making decisions that they think would be best for the general population. Whereas with decentralized cryptocurrencies, the public, the people that are actually participating in the various projects that are out there, they have the power and they have the say at the end of the day for what direction the project moves forward in. And so I think that we're going to see a lot more movement towards decentralization in all areas of society. And we of course have started with crypto and the blockchain. So it's definitely a very powerful step in a positive direction for our planet.
Yep. And when you mentioned blockchain, can you better explain like what blockchain is and how the likes of Bitcoin would use it?
Yeah, absolutely. So blockchain, just to keep it super simple and short, it is a online ledger that keeps track of whatever information is being put into it. So with Bitcoin, as an example, you can use Bitcoin to send payments from one person to another. So Bitcoin's blockchain essentially takes all of that information, who the transaction came from, where the transaction was going, how much Bitcoin was going, what the fees were, the time, the date, all of that. And it permanently puts it inside of this ledger, the blockchain, and it can be viewed by anybody at any given moment. There is a certain level of anonymity. It's not completely, secretive. You can, with some time and some effort and the right, if you know what you're looking for, figure out where money was going to, who it was coming from, just by kind of connecting the dots. But yeah, blockchain is just a way of storing information in a public database, essentially online.
All right. And as you've already said, like it's just a lot more public and for the people in a sense, like using decentralization, using the blockchain, it makes everything kind of more open and also used like the functions are typically run by people. So, for example, mining, like what is the purpose of mining? And if you use Bitcoin as an example to help people understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with mining, as an example, mining basically is one way of bringing a cryptocurrency into creation, first and foremost. But secondly, what miners essentially do with Bitcoin, for example, they are putting their computing power towards solving some sort of mathematical problem. And by doing that, it's maintaining the integrity of the blockchain. So when they're putting their computer resources towards verifying that the information being stored in the blockchain is true, they are mining and being rewarded with new Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency if it uses mining too, to essentially just support the network.
So it's just their way of helping people continue to verify different things and support the network
Yeah.
individually,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly. Exactly. With decentralization, it's like we can have 100 people all around the world in different parts that don't even know each other. But this person is saying that the information is valid and true. And this person, and this person, and this person, it goes all the way down the line. And everybody is agreeing with a mutual consensus that yes, the information Zachary sent Philippe, this amount of money on this day at this time with this crypto, everybody agrees. And so there doesn't have to be any sort of trust or anybody, nobody could look at that and be like, well, that didn't happen because everybody agrees.
Mhm.
So
And the way like I read about that specifically was like, well, if you go to the corner store and you get a pack of gum, or like 3 packs of gum, and you give them a $5 bill. And then you go across the street to the gas station and get $5 of gas. You can't give them the same $5 bill. Like, you already physically gave it elsewhere.
Yeah.
So using the decentralization and using the fact that everyone's part of this system and they're all fact checking it, then as you said, there's no trust. Like, everyone can say, yep, it happened, it happened, it happened. Everyone gets a little check mark off, and then they get rewarded as miners with whatever they're mining in the end for doing that work, doing their due diligence.
Exactly.
So I actually had a question already in the chat. Do you think that the cabal created crypto, or is that too rabbit holey?
Well, we'll touch on that just briefly. That could be a whole conversation of its own, but in my opinion, with Bitcoin being at the core of the whole cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin being the main crypto right now that a lot of people know about, a lot of people have done a little bit of studying into, and more and more people are investing into it. The thing is, if you look into the backstory of Bitcoin, the whole Satoshi Nakamoto, nobody really knows who it is. I think that there wasn't just one person, that alias, who is the sole founder, because we know that there were other people within all different parts of the world with all different levels of expertise and backgrounds that contributed to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's open source, right? So that's one of the cool things about it. Everybody can look at the code, everybody can make modifications to it, and have the community vote on whether or not those modifications are for the better or shouldn't be implemented. But with the whole cabal thing, inventing crypto, I think that may be taking it a little bit too far, because you got to think about what cryptocurrency is as a whole. No, there are thousands of different cryptos out there, and all of them serve their own unique purpose. Some of them are backed by very reputable companies like IBM, for example. So it's not necessarily something that can just be generalized as like, oh, the elite made crypto so that they can track our money and know exactly what we have and who we're doing business with. It's a lot bigger than that, in my opinion.
Well, that actually led it perfectly into like the next question I had, because you mentioned all the different types of cryptos and that a bunch of them have different functions and they come from different sources. So what are some different types of cryptos and their functions? I know, or a lot of people know, we have Bitcoin and how Bitcoin operates and what its purpose is. But then there are others like XLM, for example, that I've personally looked into and invested into. Do you know what their purpose is and their function of currency?
Yeah, so I mean, Stellar Lumens is something that I've invested into the past. I've got some on my ledger, but not investment advice. Just putting that out there. But to answer your question, the way that I like to look at the crypto market and all the different cryptos that are out there, I like to look at it as if it were a stock. Okay, and so here's what I mean by that. When you're investing in the stock market, say you're looking at Apple or Tesla or Amazon, and you're thinking about putting money into the market to in return get shares of the company, you're not just buying that stock based off of the hope or the analysis and the expectation that price is going to go up. You're doing a little bit more than that. If you're investing into Apple, for example, it's because you believe that they have good products, that they have a large market share. Perhaps you're an iPhone user or a Mac user, or something along that lines as well. So you're supporting that company and you're investing into the vision that they're going to continue to grow into the future. Same thing with Tesla. If you're investing into Tesla, you're not just solely investing based off of the hope or the expectation that price is going to go up. You're investing into a company that's providing value. They're making significant change and progress within the automotive industry. And so that's the same kind of thought process and approach that I look at with crypto. With something like XLM, it's a payment protocol. So it's something that allows us for a very, 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 very insignificant fee to effortlessly send money to anyone, anywhere in the world. And it's something that can allow you to exchange crypto to crypto, crypto to fiat. They're working towards having stocks being tokenized on the blockchain. They're working towards having commodities being tokenized on the blockchain. Hey, they're even working towards something like, let's just say I had a house that I wanted to sell, rather than needing to go through the mortgage dealer and the bank and this and that. We can just do a peer-to-peer transaction and have it verified and transacted through the blockchain. So each individual crypto has its own purpose. There are some that will allow music producers, songwriters and musicians to tokenize their music and sell and distribute that. There are some out there that are being used in video games. There are some out there that are designed to be stable at $1 so that it doesn't have that same fluctuation in the marketplace as something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, for example. So at the end of the day, I mean, there's no generic answer to say like there's this purpose for that, for the whole crypto market, because like they all
Mhm.
serve their own unique purpose. And what's so cool is, just like in the stock market, where you might have several different companies doing similar things, but bringing value to the market in their own way. It's the exact same thing with cryptocurrency. So that's how I look at it from a very neutral perspective of just like, why might I want to support this project and put my money in it?
Yeah, and personally, touching on XLM, um, I had to liquidate an account, I think like 2 months ago, and the only way to liquidate it was through wire transfer, like bank wire transfer. And it came out, the account took like 3 days to then get transferred from Australia to the United States, and then took another 2 days to go from the United States to my bank in Canada, and another 2 days before it got cleared. And all along that process, they're taking their fees
Yep.
because they have to do so much. And in the past, it made sense because there was actually a process. But now, when things are sent electronically and instantly, there really is no process. They're just holding the money,
Yeah.
using it for 2 days for their investment, then putting
Yep.
the money back in, and then shipping it off. They're making money off of your money while they're holding it and then charging you on it. So
Yep.
for me, I went through that experience and then I learned about Stellar literally the day after. And I was like, wow, this is brilliant. Like the way they transfer it instantly, and it can be, as Zach said, like they're bringing in commodity. As I've seen on the app, you can trade like USD or Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, Japanese yen for gold, for other currencies, cryptocurrencies, fiat, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I really believe that this over the next few years, it might be the way forward because the wire transfer system is so outdated and needs to be updated somehow. So
Yep.
completely agree with what you're saying. Look into it as a company, as a stock, as what its purpose is. It's not just a currency, but what they do behind in the business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your perspective on that, and what you brought up about how with the old system, like wire transfers, for example, not only are you paying all of those outrageous fees, but they're actually making money off of your money while they're holding it and waiting for that transaction to take place. You reminded me of this story. I'll just share it really quickly. It was about 3 years ago. I was in the post office. I was just going to be mailing a couple of things, and the man in front of me was having a conversation with the person at the counter, and he wanted to send $1,000 from him in Canada to his family in Mexico via Western Union. After everything was said and done, for him to pay the currency conversion fee, for him to pay the Western Union fee, for him to pay, there was one other fee as well that was associated with the post office. For him to send $1,000 to his family in another country, it was going to take several days, and he ended up paying almost 300 Canadian dollars in fees. So almost 30% in fees to send his family money, and they weren't even going to get it the same day. And I was sitting there and I was just listening to that conversation. It's just like, man, when it is easier, and reminder, this was 3 years ago. So there's been a lot of progress that's been made since then. But I was just thinking to myself, when it's easier for people to leverage something like Stellar or another payment protocol to send money, it's going to eliminate that. And what might be a 30% fee back then could be a 2 or a 3% fee today. And it can be same day, more often than not within the same 5-10 minutes later, the money has been sent and received. So there's definitely a lot of room in the future for digital currencies, whether it's in the banking sector or other industries as well.
Yeah. So I there are a lot of questions coming into the chat. But while we were on the topic, so before I ask those and we start answering those, we were on the topic of them being similar to stocks is a good way to look at it. So I had two questions literally on that already, and that is, what is an ICO or initial coin offering? Because I know that relates to stocks, and you can give that example as well.
Yeah, okay. So an ICO, it's almost like an IPO when a company is going public for the first time and they're offering their shares to the public for the first time. It's a very similar thing in crypto. When a project is looking to raise money so that they can continue to develop their infrastructure, sometimes what we'll see happen is they'll do an ICO where they're making their coin, right, the way of transacting on their platform available for the first time, and it's usually at a lower price than what it actually ends up getting listed for. So just like in the stock market, the early adopters can be rewarded. There is also risk, and the ICO landscape, depending on where you live, there are some restrictions, but it's basically the exact same thing as what they do in the stock market, just for crypto. They're just making their coin available to the public for the first time. But you got to be careful with ICOs, because one thing that I've come to learn and I've come to realize, and we've actually been fortunate enough to demonstrate, is that on the topic of being able to have all of these different cryptos with their own purposes, there are actually some platforms that let you make your own crypto. So literally anybody in the world can make a coin. So that's why when you're looking at it as a potential investment, you really got to ask yourself, well, why would I want to put my money here? What is the value? What is the purpose of this? If it's only hope it's going to go up in value, probably not a sustainable investment.
Mm-hmm. And the last question I had that was like, once again, similar is, are crypto securities? Bringing it back to old other forms of investment.
I mean, some definitely are, some are not. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty right now. One of the most recent things that happened was the whole XRP Ripple lawsuit from the SEC. So I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not, I haven't gone and like studied all of the laws and the rules and whatnot. I'm not the person making the decisions at the end of the day for like what's a security and what's not. But all that I'll say on that topic is that if the company's sole purpose is to make their coin available to the public so that they can raise money, then there's a possibility that if they can create those coins on demand and make them available to the general public, that it could be classified as a security. If, for example, with the Ripple thing, if we see it does end bad, then that's going to set a very strong message for a lot of other cryptos that are on the market right now. So I'm hoping personally that it's not classified as a security. I don't own any, so it doesn't really matter to me. But for the health of the industry, I think that in the next few years, we are going to see a lot of clarity coming on what's a security, what's not, what are the guidelines? Because I mean, crypto, it's changing very rapidly.
Hmm. So now with that, I'm just going to start going through some of the questions that we have in the chat. I already saw you said you'll touch on one of these. So Jenna said, is a physical ledger necessary in your opinion? Because you showed yours before.
Yeah. So the way that I like to look at it, if if you don't physically have possession of the crypto, it's not yours. And here's what I mean by that. A couple years ago in Greece, there was a very challenging situation that people were faced with where the financial institutions implemented a restriction on how much money people could withdraw from the ATM within a single day. So imagine for a minute, you have $1 million in your bank and you want to go and you want to take money out of it, you want to spend it or invest it or just move it out of that bank. Imagine going to your bank and them telling you, nope, you can only withdraw $1,000 today. How would that make you feel? With crypto, if you're holding your coins on an exchange like Coinbase or an exchange like CoinSquare, if you're in Canada, for example, I'm not affiliated, just giving an example. Yes, the crypto is sitting there in your account and it is tied to your name, but it's technically not yours. If for whatever reason the exchange decided to say we need to implement a certain restriction where you can now only withdraw or transact this amount per day, or you need to send us this and this and that and prove where you got the money from to buy this crypto and like they can ask for whatever they want, and unless you give them that information, you're not going to have access to your coins. So I personally feel like it is a lot better to have some sort of alternative way of securing your assets, whether it's with a ledger. There are several different types of physical devices out there: Ledger, KeepKey, Trezor. Those are some of the ones that I've looked into. I've only personally owned a ledger, but there are also softwares that you can download, different wallets you can have on your phone. One that I've used a lot is called Exodus. But there are tons and tons and tons of ways to secure your crypto. And one of the things that we're moving towards is banks being able to actually hold your crypto. There was an article that was published just a couple of weeks ago, and it was saying how the infrastructure is now in place for large financial institutions. When they want to, they can start accepting deposits in cryptocurrency. So yeah, in theory, that's cool. But the moment that you start giving your crypto to the bank, it's the same thing. It's really not yours, even though it's tied to your name. And so hopefully that gives you some stuff to think about, because I've always looked at cryptocurrency as a way to be your own bank, right? And with the topic of financial literacy, we're doing our best to be in a position to not have to rely on other people to take control of our money. We are the ones that should be able to do that. So that's my thoughts on that.
Perfect. I think that clarified a lot up. It's literally like me and the idea of silver. I know that, or any other precious metals, you can buy them, you can have them in a vault. But personally, I'd rather just like have it. The fact that I know where
What
it
if
is, I
you
can
need that? What if you need that silver? It's in
yeah, exactly.
it's in Australia in a vault somewhere. Like what?
Literally like the same thing. I just bought some metals recently, so when they come in, like I was like, yeah, I'm having them. So the next one we had in the chat was, is EOS something you're looking into?
EOS is something that I've looked into within the past, but I haven't actively been following the project, so I don't really have any thoughts on it. Is it something that you looked into though?
No, I haven't even. That was
It's all
just
good.
that was just one from the chat that I'm trying to get answered while I'm looking through it.
Yeah, it's all good.
We have another. Bill Gates said in a tech interview, "We don't need banks anymore. We need banking." So, as a trading coach, do you think Bitcoin is a threat for banks?
I think crypto is a threat to banks because I agree. And it ties in perfectly with what we were just talking about a moment ago. The fact that banks are now legally allowed to take crypto deposits, even though a lot of them haven't started to do that yet. If you do a little bit of searching, you'll be able to find the articles from the OCC very easily. But the fact that the banks have had to change their infrastructure to now start allowing people to deposit cryptocurrency into their traditional banking, it just goes to show that yes, we do need banking, but we don't need the banks. There is infrastructure in other ways that are much cheaper, much faster, and much more effective than using a traditional banking system. So,
Mhm.
Bitcoin as a threat, no, but the industry as a whole, absolutely.
And so, at that point, do you think that um, if they're threatened, like they're gonna personally try because they are the old institution? Um, Typically, we know that as investors, institutions move markets and they have a lot of power and say. Do you think that they will try to alienate that, or because we have another question in the chat that I saw, um, do you think that they will try to incorporate it and see that okay, look, we're getting well surpassed here. We need to update. We need to move forward and go with the time. So, for example, central banks adopting XLM or building on Stellar blockchain. That's something in the chat that I've seen. So, do you think that they would try to shut it down or just go with it and try to become a part of it more so?
Well, the cool thing about the industry is that it's decentralized. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't shut it down. And we can use XRP as a perfect example. The exchanges within the US, at least, I'm not sure about Canada, but a lot of the major exchanges that offer crypto purchases to the USA right now, as soon as the SEC filed the lawsuit claiming that XRP was a security, what we saw happen almost immediately after was those exchanges in the States started delisting XRP. So it was no longer being made available for trading. Just because it's no longer available for trading there on that exchange or in the States doesn't mean that XRP went anywhere. It's still being traded. It's still available in several exchanges across the world. So it's one of those things where they either have to get on board or they get left behind because you can't stop something that's decentralized because of how it's distributed around the world. So I think that that is why we're seeing them do their best to incorporate it and offer the ability to hold crypto. And just like was being said in the chat about, a large percentage of the traded XRP happens outside of the states anyways. It's like each individual country is going to have their own way of perceiving crypto, whether they're friendly towards it or not. But at the end of the day, they have to adopt it or they're going to get left behind.
Yeah. And we have another one, for example, with what happened with Ethereum and the DAO attack. Do you think that some of them might claim to be decentralized but not actually be decentralized, or what's your view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give you a really good perspective on that with the whole idea of a crypto claiming to be decentralized, but perhaps it's not so decentralized or it's owned by a smaller percentage of people than one might think. We'll look at Bitcoin as an example. Okay, and this is one of the when I like to play the devil's advocate, there's a lot of good that Bitcoin brings to the market, but there are also some things that I feel are worth considering. One of those things is how by the end of 2018, about 80% of the entire supply of Bitcoin was already distributed. It was already mined, already either in people's possession, or lost or stolen and locked away somewhere. But it was out there and it was no longer able to be produced. That's important to realize because if there was only ever supposed to be 21 million Bitcoin and a very large percent of that supply was already out there in other people's possession prior to price even being above 3,000, for example, and we're trading at 34,800 right now. How decentralized could something like that be if the majority of the coins were already distributed when price was 10 times less than what it is right now? And there are definitely other cryptos that are out there as well that say they're decentralized, but really the CEO of that company has a lot of say and a lot of pull over what happens and how it happens. So you really do have to be careful when you're investing into the crypto market because, yes, there is a lot of good coming from it. But just like anything, there are scams. And like I said earlier, anybody can make a crypto, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to either fork a coin or leverage a platform like Waves, for example, and create your own coin. So that's some of my perspective on that. And I'd be curious as well, just from what you've been able to educate yourself up until this point. I know that we've been talking a lot about the inclusion of crypto into our traditional way of doing things. So from your perspective, when you look at all of the things that you've been learning up until right now, the pros and the cons, would you say that crypto, in your opinion, is a good thing, or is there more bad than good that can happen with the scams and the misinformation and just everything that we've seen happen in the industry up until today's time?
Yeah, well, personally, like I like the direction it's going. It's also like, even if crypto itself doesn't end up being the final answer, the change, the whatever it is, it's still pushing the envelope and it's still pushing the institutions into that way. As I said, talking about the wire transfer, maybe in the past they needed to physically charge you for holding it because they're literally doing all the paperwork and everything behind it. But nowadays, when everything is so instant, automatic, transferred, literally, it's just numbers on a screen. There's no need for it, and something needs to try and change our system a bit. Even when I think of Bitcoin, the fact that you say it's similar to gold in the sense that it's a finite amount. Yes, so much of it has already come out, but there's still a finite amount. Whereas then you look at the US dollar, and over 35% of that has been printed since Corona started. And they just get in trouble and go, oh, we'll make more, it's fine. And that just leads to hyperinflation and a whole bunch of issues that come with that. So I do think that crypto is pushing things in the right direction, and yes, there's always going to be good and bad. My personal take, though, is I believe that it's either crypto itself or crypto will force others to adapt and move forward in the society and the times that we live in now. Um, just checking the chat again. Do you think Bitcoin will always be number one, or do you think others will overtake it?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on that, I think that Bitcoin will always be around. And I think that there will always be people accumulating it and trading it, but I personally don't feel like it will be the most used crypto. It could be one of the most valuable, right? We don't know, time will tell, but I don't think it will be one of the most used cryptos. And the reason why is because in order for you to use something like Bitcoin in your day to day transactions, when you're going to get groceries, or when you're going to pay your phone bill, or when you're paying your rent, do you really want to take on the market volatility that comes with that? Having a certain amount of money in your account at the beginning of the day, and then after some crazy price changes, you now have 20% less, or maybe you have 50% more. In my opinion, that's too unpredictable for the average person to be using in a daily environment. So Bitcoin's definitely not going away. I just don't think that it's going to be the thing that people use for day-to-day trade. I think that there's going to be something else that gets implemented, or it could be in the process of being implemented right now. And just like what's being said in the chat from Don, BTC just had a head start. Once the government really starts to take over, there's going to be a shift. I would agree with that 100% because there's just too much market volatility for Bitcoin to be used as a day-to-day transaction payment, in my opinion. But what are your
Once
thoughts on
again,
that?
once again, I think it could kind of be like gold. Gold's never going anywhere, and gold will always be a store of value. Gold is
Mm-hmm.
literally the definition of money. It's
Mm-hmm.
fungible. You can give it around, like you can divide it, etc., so on and so forth. However, the whole reason we ended up coming up with paper money, like fiat currencies, these IOUs, is because like, what are you gonna do if you're gonna carry around like
You don't want to be carrying bricks
100
around.
ounces of gold and silver with you? Like that's heavy. You're gonna have to keep it in
I
a
can
bucket.
only fit so many of these in my pocket.
Yeah, like crazy. But it's always a store of value and it's always going to be around. So I could see Bitcoin because just like you said, the volatility, it's always going to be around. It's the biggest one, but that's the downside to Bitcoin. Gold and silver, like they're heavy, they take up a lot of space. So that's where people were putting it in vaults, and the bank said, okay, do you know what? Well, here's a piece of paper that says you essentially own $10 million worth of gold or $20 worth of gold, whatever it was. Now that they've printed so much and we're off the gold standard, we're not even close to that. However, gold's still around. You can still trade gold. It still has value. So I completely agree with what you're saying about Bitcoin. It's going to be around. It's going to have value, but there's a drawdown to it. And in Bitcoin's case, it could be the volatility. And yeah, I guess
Is it
like
for
when
preserving
you're going to
value?
pay for a bill, it's a $3,000 bill for I don't know, property tax. You think you have $3,000, and the next thing you know, oh crap, my Bitcoin's actually down at 1.5. What happened last night? It was at 6. Like you just can't
Yeah.
trust that, I guess.
Yeah, it's not even so much trust as much as it is just having the confidence in the system itself, so that when you're budgeting, for example, and it's like, well, I know that I have to pay this, and that, and you set that aside. When you brought up the example of they used to exchange, you would go and you would bring your physical gold to the vault. They would give you the piece of paper that said, yeah, you've got this much gold in the bank. If you need it, you can come back and redeem it, because it was easier to trade in that kind of a way. Well, what happened when all the gold ran out?
Mhm.
That system no longer worked. And so the way that I look at that with Bitcoin, it's like, well, if we take a look at some of the daily fluctuations, like how on the 11th of January, the high of the day was 38,000 and the low of the day was near 30,000. That's a 7% price change approximately in a 24-hour period of time. So if you had $100,000 worth of Bitcoin beginning of the day, well, you're losing approximately 7% of that by the end of the day. So anything that you would have budgeted, well, now you have to completely change that around because you no longer had what you initially had just at the beginning of the day. So the volatility is definitely something that, if you're using Bitcoin as like an investment or a hedge, or if you look at it from the perspective of its like digital gold, because it's got the same kind of properties plus the advantage of being digital rather than being these big bars, then yeah, of course it's got a lot of positive things, and that's why I believe it's not going anywhere. It's just really the question of, is it enough to be that daily used platform that the entire world is doing business with? I personally don't think so. And so I'm really curious to see what ends up happening and how Bitcoin is incorporated into that environment. Time will tell.
And what are your thoughts on Libra and all that coming up?
Yeah, I mean Libra. I remember when Facebook first announced that they were going to be making a crypto, and I think that it will be successful. I mean, if you really take a look at Facebook, for an example, unless something drastic happens, they're really not going away. It's one of the most used social platforms that's on the internet right now. So it's like for them to incorporate a way where you can do business through a cryptocurrency directly on their platform, I think that from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I personally, I don't know if I'll use it because I'm liking Facebook less and less. But again, another conversation for another day.
That's like what they're rolling out with WhatsApp, since they own WhatsApp, and well, they own Instagram as well. So they do have like a massive platform to be able to, on multiple different aspects and like different generations, different uses, to be
Yeah,
able to roll out a system like that. But I do agree, especially with WhatsApp recently.
yeah,
Don't really know about that, but there's definitely a market for it. And you could see probably like if they take that first step, it's just like Bitcoin was like the leader. They had the head start on all of crypto. But if other companies, banks, etc., start to take those steps, it starts to change a lot and start to go more and more into the crypto space. Um,
but yeah.
so
The
if,
thing the thing about Libra, from what I understand, it's not supposed to be an investment. It's supposed to be one of those stable coins that stays relatively around $1. So it's like you could be exchanging $1 for 1 Libra, hypothetically. So it's not supposed to be like, yeah, I'm gonna put my money into Facebook's crypto and hope that it makes me rich. It's more or less just like, I want to be able to do business easier through Facebook and their various platforms. So let me just
yeah,
buy
using it
their.
to, well, I know on Instagram, if you want to have a sponsored ad and promote it, okay, you're paying whatever currency. But if everyone then has to transfer all the different currencies into just Libra, then Facebook knows that they can just collect everything in Libra and then transfer it through their system, whatever, to whatever currency that it is that they want in the end.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think of Pi Network? I know Pi Network. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it's I actually have it on my phone still. It's
Yeah,
that
me too.
it's that invite one, right? Like
Yeah,
you get
and
invited to it. They've been
it
in beta for
basically
a
lets
long
you
time.
mine. It lets you mine on your phone, so everyone has access to it. Everyone can mine on your phone, and there's no limit. So they have like their theory behind it, and also like if you're on their network, currently there's no value. Well, value is undetermined. So if you're trying to sell something that's usually worth $50 and you sell it for 1 pi, then it essentially equates pi to being $50. But it's the value that the network of people involved give it. Um, but moving forward, I've heard that they are going to release. They're going to be traded and everything. So for those like you and I who already have it, what do you think the value of the currency will be once it's released? Because it could also be seen as what the governments are doing with fiat currencies and just hyperinflation. It's the complete opposite of Bitcoin. If everyone can have access to it, everyone can mine it, and there's no limit to that. Then what is your take on how they are specifically running their crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the fundamentals of Pi. Like, I don't know what their maximum supply is, or if there is even a max supply. I know that they've been in their whole beta stage for quite some time. I know that they have a lot of users on the platform now, and if and when their crypto actually starts being traded, I'm curious to see what happens. There's a very high probability that I'll sell half of what I've already been able to accumulate the day that it's available. And, if it ever does become available, then, like I said, I'll just kind of see what happens with it. I don't personally like the idea of an infinite amount of a crypto being able to be created, because then what's the difference between that and a fiat currency? There really isn't any
I guess the
difference.
only difference is that if you're the one printing it, essentially, like you decide where it goes and you have access to it. Whereas if the Fed prints it, then they kind of choose where to first put it out. And I don't know. Also, the Fed typically prints money because of bonds and debt, whereas this, I guess, isn't printed due to an original debt. But
Yeah,
I was thinking the
it's
same
more like
thing
they're
about
rewarding you. They're more like rewarding you with pie for watching ads right now. That's pretty much how it's
but the
working.
way I when I go on it, I'll literally go once I get the notification
Mhm.
to touch it again. I go click the button and then I go off the app, so I'm not even watching ads really. But if it blows up, it blows up. Like, and it was free, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really
Oh
matter.
yeah, it was a free thing to download. I see somebody in the chat posted their thing, so
Yeah, it made me laugh because it's always like that in the group chats. Whoever gets their code out first. Um. So yeah, are there any more questions? Because
I'll
I only
quickly
had
touch
like
on that one from
left over.
Omar. He asked about a specific exchange. I've used it. I've got one of their cards, the cashback crypto card. The only thing that I don't like about it, I guess there are two things. Number one is that they keep changing their requirements. So to qualify for the cashback card, it used to be a certain amount. Now it's like 5 times more. So having all of those changes be put in place, is it good for the business? Yes. Is it good for the consumer? Not really. The second thing that I don't like is that it's an exchange. There's only a certain amount of my assets that I'll feel comfortable having on there at any given point in time. Because just like we were talking about a little bit earlier in the conversation, if it's not your keys and if it's not in your possession, then it's really not your crypto. So just something to keep in mind.
And for those who would probably be watching this on YouTube that weren't part of Trade House that got to watch this live, um, or anyone that's going to be watching this as it's shared to them, whatever the case may be, what's your take on people getting in now? Because we know that we've talked all along the call about how we see crypto shaping the future. So, like the direction we're headed in now, how much of an impact can it have for someone to be getting involved sooner rather than later?
I think that the best thing that anybody can do right now is educate themselves. I'm not going to tell anybody where to put their money or what they should do with their money or what they should invest in, because at the end of the day, we're all capable of making our own decisions. And I'm not in a position to even be able to give that advice. But I think that it would make a tremendous impact for if you're completely new and this is one of the first conversations that you even heard about crypto. Continue educating yourself. That is literally the number one thing that you can do. Learn about how you can safely store your crypto. Learn about what industries you think would have a large benefit from some sort of blockchain being implemented. One of my favorite examples is the healthcare industry. Imagine for a minute being able to have all of your health records in your possession without needing to go through your doctor and your dentist and this person and that person. You could literally have your own private record stored in a blockchain that you can get access to at any given moment. So there's a lot of potential for this industry to continue growing and to continue impacting our day to day life. And I would really encourage you to start thinking about what you might want to invest into, why it would make sense for you to get involved with that, as well as to just be open minded to learning as much about it as you can. Because whether you like it or not, within the next 10 years, there's going to be a massive transition away from what we are currently using right now in our monetary system. Is going to look completely different.
Huge
So
shift coming up. And I see a question we had like, what are good sources to educate yourself on crypto? And already we have an answer in the chat. DCX, that package on I Am Academy, definitely gonna be able to help. It's all about crypto. Every educator that goes live teaching everything about crypto. The other one I found actually is if you already have a Coinbase account, you can actually watch videos on specific cryptos and answer like questions, and they'll pay you in those cryptos. It's like little amounts. So you'll have little holdings in all these different cryptos. However, it's also a great way to educate yourself on what they do. So I've watched like 7 different cryptos videos that they have out there. But then I realized I actually really like 2 of them. So I said, you know what? I'm actually gonna, just like Zach said at the beginning, seeing it as a company, as a stock, and say, what do you believe in their value, their product, their service, whatever it may be. And by educating myself on Coinbase, watching those videos, I then got paid for it. Um, and I realized which ones I personally related to and had faith in, and liked their business ideology, etc., and invested into myself. Do you have any other recommendations on where anyone can find other resources to educate themselves on crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're living in the most technologically connected time that there ever has been. One of my favorite places to educate myself is directly from the source. And so here's what I mean by that. You mentioned XLM a little bit earlier as a project that you've taken interest into. We were talking a little bit about it on Telegram, and you had mentioned that you own some. I do as well. When I first started learning about XLM, most projects, if they're credible and if they're worthy of making an impact, they're going to have something that's called a white paper. So, a white paper is essentially a resource that details everything about the project and why the crypto even exists in the first place. So, there are many generalized resources that you can go and you can reference, whether it be articles on the internet, opinion pieces on YouTube or another video site, the Digital Currency Academy with all of the different educators that share information, whether you're hopping onto the live sessions, whether you're going through the courses. But if you really want to learn the specifics about a particular project, whether it be Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything else, read the white paper because it's going to tell you literally everything that you need to know about that project to give you the information to make an informed decision on whether or not you would want to even own that crypto to begin with. So that would be my suggestion. Go to the source, check out the white paper.
Perfect. Do we have any other questions? I literally just had one last one, but it's kind of funny. It's because I follow so many different like pages on Instagram, and everyone has their predictions on where Bitcoin and Ethereum are heading, especially like those guys are just literally jumping on anything that's Bitcoin. So over the next year or 5 years, especially with Bitcoin breaking all the highs recently, where do you see like Bitcoin being or Ethereum?
Well, I am more bearish on Bitcoin than I am bullish. Um, like I mentioned, I don't see it going anywhere. I still see it being used. I still see people trading it. In the next 5 years, I mean, I don't even know. I scratch my head and I find it funny with the predictions out there that say, Bitcoin to 500,000 or Bitcoin to 1 million. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
Extra.
If it happens, cool. But I think when I look at the probabilities of that happening, it's very slim, in my opinion. I personally believe that Bitcoin could find itself trading, anywhere between 10 to 20,000. Like I think that that would still be a reasonable price point that people would be willing to transact with and trade within the range. But at the end of the day, like I really don't know. Same thing with Ethereum. Like there's a lot of things that are happening right now with that particular network. They're doing a whole migration where they're trying to upgrade their network to Ethereum 2.0. It's supposed to bring a whole lot more scalability, supposed to really speed up the transactions and everything else, but it's like, can they execute it in the way that they need to? Time will tell. So it's good to have these visions of what you think might happen in the future. And it's good to be optimistic about the industry regardless, because it's not going anywhere. I just don't personally see, could Bitcoin make a new all-time high from where it is right now? Absolutely. I think it will. But I don't think it's going to be $1 million a coin or some of these very substantial estimates that people are making. So
Well, I also think what's fast won't last, what's slow will grow. So if like what goes up must come down kind of thing, and especially like if you know about price action, the way it just exploded up, we know that there's a lot of imbalance left behind. You need to come fill it before you can potentially, as you said, make a new all-time high, continue to grow. Um, and I was also asking about Ethereum because Ethereum actually outperformed Bitcoin last year. I don't know how many people know that, because Bitcoin was hitting such highs in terms of monetary value in comparison to what it would be USD or CAD or whatever currency you're comparing it to. And Ethereum in terms of monetary value appeared less. But as if you were to invest in it at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, percentage wise on return, it would have been better on Ethereum. So
yeah, Bitcoin, I'm looking at the yearly chart right now. In 2020, Bitcoin did 301% from the opening price to the closing price. And then Ethereum for 2020 did 473%. So definitely a lot of explosive upside movement in both. Both presented some very nice opportunities, and I think that more will come. It's just play the price action, educate yourself, and really be clear on why you're investing into a project if you're physically looking to own the coins as well.
all right, perfect. Drop some threes in the chat if you guys got crazy value. I know I'm gonna have to rewatch it so I can take my notes on this when I get the chance. Because there's way more value than I know I could find if I was just trying to do my research on Google. That's for sure.
I'm definitely grateful for you inviting me here to be a guest, and for everybody that tuned in as well, live or in the recording. Appreciate you being here, educating yourself. That's literally the most important thing. And what I would encourage you to do moving forward, just as kind of like the last thing that I want to say before you close it off, is remember that the theme is financial literacy. You want to put yourself in a position to be financially responsible for your life. You shouldn't have to rely on anybody else to manage your money or to trade your money or to invest your money, because you have access to the resources as well as the potential to build the skills to be your own bank. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Congratulate yourself for educating yourself up until this point. And let's make this year moving forward one full of tremendous growth, because there's going to be many, many, many opportunities to come.